Joining us now, GOP Senator Rick Scott of Florida. Senator Scott, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Well, happy Easter. It's a special day for Christians.
It absolutely is. And we, by the way, just have a statement from the White House on that. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the show. There's been some controversy you may have heard. But I want to start here with the bridge and us just talking with Governor Moore. There is talk that some of this will have to come through a funding package in Congress where you guys are fighting over a lot of things. Do you see that moving?
Well, first off, my heart goes out to everybody that lost their life, and I hope they found, the bodies. I feel sorry for those families, and I know it's going to take a lot of work. Look, this should be an issue that we all come together. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has played politics. I still have Florida farmers from a hurricane a year and a half ago that still aren't getting relief. So the federal government is a partner. The federal government needs to be a partner, but we need to stop playing politics, and that's exactly what the Biden administration has done.
Well, let's talk about, speaking of politics, you're fresh back from a trip to Israel. The Biden administration has both publicly and privately created some distance when it comes to how it feels about the current administration there in Israel. And the vice president just days ago was asked about consequences if Israel moves into Rafah with this planned ground invasion. Here's what she said.
Are you ruling out that there would be consequences from the United States?
I am ruling out nothing.
What do you think those consequences are, and how is that public talk, that position going over with Israeli leaders?
It's not going over well. I met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and the foreign minister, the defense minister. They know that they have to go into Rafah to destroy Hamas. They have to destroy Hamas. They need American support, but they're going to go into Rafah to get rid of Hamas, whether the U.S. supports them or not. I don't understand it. We still have American hostages. I met with families of American hostage families while I was over there. I went to one of the kibbutz I'd been to in 2019 where over 60 Jews were killed just because they're Jews, kids. People were raped. They're just shot at point blank. They were burned alive. I went to a music festival where 363 people were killed just because they were Jews. There's over 40 hostages. I met with IDF soldiers. They need American support. Here's my takeaway. Number one, they need and deserve American support. They have to go into Rafah to destroy Hamas. Number two, Qatar could get the hostages out. They need to be held accountable for doing that. Number three, Iran needs to be held accountable. All right. And then we all have to do everything we can to support them. So I'm going to work hard to get these hostages home. I think the Biden administration, Democrats need to change their tune. They voted against Israel aid. America didn't even stand up for Israel at the UN with the UN resolution. I mean, this is disgusting what the Biden administration is doing. Support Israel. They've got to kill Hamas. They'll never get their country back.
At the same time, there are numerous reports out there that billions more in weapons, bombs, fighter jets are flowing to Israel from the Biden administration. So is this a matter of, in your estimation, publicly talking tough, but privately the U.S. is getting Israel what it needs, and that's despite pressure from the left?
Well, this is a long fight. There's going to be a time where they're going to need more weapons. There's been prior weapons packages that has given Israel aid, but there's going to need to be more aid given to be able to destroy Hamas. And by the way, we've got to focus on destroying Hamas, and we also got to focus on what are we doing to get these hostages out? Why isn't the Biden administration doing anything to hold Qatar accountable for what's going on over here?
Well, and to that point, I want to read this. It's from Richard Goldberg, who's an advisor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. He's a former Trump administration security official. He says there's long been a need for a moment of choosing where the Qataris have to decide that they are a U.S. ally and not the modern-day Swiss banker to the Nazis who are going to play all sides, take from the U.S. strategic and economic benefits, and then provide strategic and economic benefits to the enemies of the United States at the same time. What more do you think this administration should or could be doing with regard to Qatar?
Well, they need to put everything on the table. Why do we have a military base in Qatar when they're hosting the leaders of Hamas, right? And why aren't they could by themselves, Qatar right now could tell Hamas, you will be leaving the country, all right, unless these hostages are released today. And guess what? Those hostages would be released today. Hamas, I mean, Qatar doesn't want to do that. They don't want to lose their military base. I don't get it. How do you have a military base in the same place where your enemy is being hosted by the government? How can we do that? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. And they're holding American hostages. I want the Biden administration to start talking about the fact we have American families being held hostage in Gaza by Hamas, and we have Israeli families. What is Biden doing to get those out? Stop talking about stop criticizing the Netanyahu administration. By the way, is Biden won a war? Has Biden fought in a war? No. What's his background in doing this? How does he know better how to go into R-Fla and get rid of Hamas? He doesn't. Makes you mad when you hear this stuff.
I want to really quickly ask you about the pier that has been proposed to set up and bring in humanitarian aid into Gaza. U.S. troops supposed to help set that up, run that operation, but not set foot into Gaza. The IDF apparently is going to expend their resources to create a security bubble there. But there are people on both sides of the aisle here in D.C. that are growing increasingly worried that U.S. troops are going to be endangered by that operation or be pulled into something more broadly. What's your take?
Well, first of all, IDF is doing everything they can to protect civilians. Who's not is Hamas. So I do not want American soldiers at risk, all right, in Gaza. That's not fair to American soldiers. We've asked, we have a letter to the White House asking, tell us what your plan is to make sure Americans, men and women, are not put at risk. We watched what happened with Afghanistan with the withdrawal, where we lost 13 servicemen and women. This administration doesn't seem to need to have a plan for anything, because it doesn't. We haven't heard what their plan is to do this. But I know that Netanyahu, the leadership in Israel, the IDF is doing everything they can to protect civilians, and who's not is Hamas.
Senator Scott, thank you for sharing your insights after just getting back from that trip. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Shannon. Happy Easter.